So, we're coming close. Baruch Hashem, we're coming close to Shavuot, which is Matan Torah. The Maharal says something very interesting. He says, if you pay attention, in every generation, the rabbi comes and he gives a drashan before Matan Torah. He gives a very big drashan in the shul. Every single rabbi that speaks has a crowd. But imagine now if I'll tell you the Vilna Gaon is going to come speak, or the Ben Ish Chai is going to come speak, right? Or the Rambam is going to come speak, or the Tanaim V'Amoraim are going to come speak, right? Or I tell Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come speak. People would be very excited to come and listen to such a speech, to come and listen to such a drasha. Imagine I tell you tomorrow morning Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come speak here. It's going to be packed. Right? He says, imagine Mamar Har Sinai, the greatest revelations they had. It says that all of Shemayim, everything opened. All the Reki'im, they were able to see all the Olamot. It was a time where even birds wouldn't make noise. The whole entire world was at silence when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was giving the Torah. And it says when Hashem spoke to the Jewish people at the giving of the Torah, they reached the level of spirituality of the way Adam HaRishon was before the sin. Before Adam HaRishon sinned, he lived in Gan Eden, he was completely above nature in every way. He was infinite, he wasn't even supposed to die. And he was on such a high level of spirituality, and that's the level of spirituality that the Jews were in at Matan Torah when Hashem spoke to them. And it says that they were, everybody there, Belev Echad, Ki'ish Echad, and on such a high level of spirituality. HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes and he opens up the 10 Commandments and he tells them, Lo tirtzach, don't murder. Lo tignov, don't steal. Lo tin'af, don't do immoral acts. Can you imagine the whole preparation that we had from coming out of Mitzrayim to coming to Matan Torah, and now we are in the highest level of spirituality where the whole nature stopped. This becomes the moment of history, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens up telling people, with the Jewish people which are on such a high level, don't murder. Right, don't murder. He says, imagine to yourself a Gadol Hador, right, comes to speak. Imagine Rav Avadia would come here to speak, and you would come up to Rav Avadia and tell him, Rabbi, the main thing is be careful not to kill anybody, right? Don't rob anything, Rabbi. Right? What are you talking about? Right? This is what's happening over here. On the highest level of spirituality, this is the 10 Commandments. This is what we open up with. These are the words that Hashem opens up with. But he says, the level Yahuan says what? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach us something. What is Hashem trying to teach us? That the koach of creation, right, the koach of that this world has, is that to take a person, even if he was as great as Adam HaRishon, before the sin, even such a person could come to the worst sins. To teach us that even a person that's a very high spiritual level, that he's on the level of the levels, right, of Adam Rishon before sin, but he could come to the lowest of all sins if he's not connected to the Torah. If a person is not connected to the Torah, no matter how high he is of a spiritual level, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is teaching them, he could come to the lowest of all sins and do every single avirah. The pasuk in this parasha says that by Reuven, right, there was Levi, and there was the Levi'im, and there was Reuven, and then it says Datan v'Abiram, Korach, right, everybody. Korach, which was from Shevet Levi, he took Datan v'Aviram, and he took many people from the Shevatim which are near him, and he made them a part of the whole attack against Moshe Rabbeinu. He says over here, how did this start? He says it started from this. It started from Pirkei Avot saying that you have to distance yourself from a wicked neighbor and do not connect to any Rishayim. Korach was successful by taking the righteous people around him and taking them and going against Moshe Rabbeinu. How? It says because they were around his atmosphere. How could it be that Datan Vaviram and great people were a part, I'm trying to get something to this, were a part of this whole plan of Korach. He says over here, why? Because in this 6th parasha it says that the Shevet Reuven was next to Shevet Levi. And when a person is next to wicked people, when a person is surrounded by wicked people, those people could bring him down even to the worst of all things. And that's also one of the reasons why Matan Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu, in the highest level of giving us the Torah, he's telling us to stay away from things which are, who would even think of such a thing? It's because what? Because when a person is around a certain surrounding, a person can come to anything. A person can never feel invincible, because a person's atmosphere could bring a person to do anything, even though he might be a great person. A person might be the greatest person in the world, but if it connects to the wrong people, it's just a matter of time before he also goes down and loses everything. And he says over here, that's what happened by Korach with the Shevet Reuven. Why was it that Reuven's tribe got so sucked into everything that Korach was doing? Because they were his neighbors. They were right next to him. They were getting affected by him. And he says, just like a person would go into a tannery. A tannery is like where they process leather and it's very smelly in there. Just going in and coming out, it already affects a person. Even if a person doesn't really do anything there. So he says that Chachamim tell us a person should stay away from wicked people, 1 or 2 reasons. 1, because a person might learn from him. A person wants to be righteous. A person is growing. A person is changing. A person is developing. He wants to become a better person. But if he's around people that are wicked, even if he himself is righteous, it'll eventually bring him down. And it's also what we just mentioned, that even by Matan Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu was telling us these sins to stay away from, because Hashem knows that a person can get to anything as long as a person is in this world. And one of the main things that bring a person to all these things is the person's atmosphere, a person's surroundings. I'll bring you a story of Rav Eliezer ben Arach. There was a very big Chacham, his name is Rav Eliezer ben Arach. He was one of the 5 Talmidim of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. They said that if you were to take all of Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai's Talmidim, which were very big Talmidei Chacham, and you put Rav Eliezer ben Arach on the other side of the scale, you have everybody against one, Rav Eliezer ben Arach would outweigh all of them from how great he was on his Torah. He was a massive Torah scholar, a very big Talmid Chacham, right? And as long as Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai was alive, they all learned by him. When Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away, all the students now decided that they want to move somewhere else. Rav Eliezer ben Arach said he's going to move to a place called Dimyoset. It's a place where the water is beautiful, it's a beautiful avir, it's nice trees, like Florida, right? It's very nice, very pleasant, very clean, very nice water. Rav Eliezer ben Arach said, you know what, I'm going to move over there. It's very nice, it's very pleasant. And the other Talmidei Chachamim said, no, we want to go to Yavna. We're going to go to a Makom of Torah. We're going to go, let's say, Lakewood for our terms, right? Well, we're going to go to Lakewood. We're going to go to a Makom of Torah. Rav Eliezer ben Arach, what did he do? He got up and he went to the Dim Yoset, right? He went to this Makom, which is beautiful, which is nice, which is clean. And he said, you know, the guys that want to come learn by me, they'll come learn by me wherever I am. Eventually, nobody started coming to him. So he told his wife, maybe we should move out. Maybe we should go to a different place. We should go to a Makom of Torah. What did his wife told him? His wife told him, if you have a piece of bread and you have a mouse, who comes to who? It's the same thing. He said, they need you, let them come to you. Eventually, they did not come to him. He did not have the proper atmosphere, even though he was a massive Talmid Chacham and he moved there. But he did not have the proper atmosphere in order for him to preserve his Torah, in order for him to preserve his spirituality, in order for him to preserve his growth. And therefore, eventually, with time, through his surroundings, he went down and down and down. It says to the point where when he went up to read in the Torah, he read the words wrong. Can you imagine such a thing? He went down to the extent that he read the words wrong. And that's why the Pirkei Avot tells us, that a person should always go to Makom Torah. If a person has an opportunity to choose a place to live, he should always go and live in a Makom where there's good yeshivot, where there's Torah, where there's Talmidei Chachamim, where a place where a person's children will come out and be around the right surroundings, around the right atmosphere, where a person will go out into the world himself, where a person will go outside and he'll have the right neighbors. Why? Because if a person thinks to himself that wherever he is, he's going to be able to grow and he's going to be able to elevate in his children, it's not going to happen. Right? It's never going to happen. Why? Because a person is always affected by his surroundings. And that's what the Maharal is telling us, that it's teaching us by the fact that we got to Matan Torah, which is the highest of all. We're standing before, we're like this before, we're like angels, David HaMelech says at that time, Matan Torah. And even so, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is warning us that as great as a person might be, and as much as a person is growing, if a person is not surrounded in a proper surrounding, if a person is not constantly connected to Torah, if a person is not around the right atmosphere, no matter who a person is, the person will go down. And this is something known. This is not something that I need to try to convince you. Everybody sees this as a reality, right? People know. You could be the best person, but if the atmosphere is wrong, but you could be somebody that's not so great. But if you're in a good atmosphere, a good community, a good surrounding, eventually also a person will grow. Eventually also a person will change. Right? And not only that, he says, you find also a very similar story by a Chacham called Rav Yossi ben Kisma. Rav Yossi ben Kisma, he was a very big Talmid Chacham. One of the very wealthy people, they came to him and told him, Rabbi, can you come and live with us in our city? We're going to give you a nice salary. We're going to build you a nice house. We're going to hook you up, Rabbi. We're going to give you everything. Come live with us. What did Rav Yossi ben Kisma say? You can give me all the money, all the silver, all the gold you want. I don't live anywhere unless there's Torah. I don't go anywhere unless I'm in a makom of Torah. So he says, he doesn't understand. Why? Why couldn't Rav Yossi ben Kisma say, okay, I'll go over there, we'll start from scratch, we'll start to develop. You know why? Because in a makom where there's no Torah, and the people in this makom, Rav Yossi ben Kisma already realized that these people are all about money. This is all they care about. All about money, 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 money. People that are in an environment that they care about is money and this world and money. These type of people are very hard to get them out of that mentality of thinking. If anything, Rav Yossi ben Kisma, he was scared that he's going to be affected by them if he's going to live with them. And therefore he told them that what? He said, I'm not going anywhere. Right? Even to go to a makom where he had potential to be able to build, he was concerned that he's not going to go. He was concerned and he didn't go. It's to teach us, right, a perspective that a person could think that he's religious, a person could think that he's growing, and a person could think that he's developing, right? But if a person thinks himself that he's going to live in a place, right, that I know a lot of people now, they're moving to different places, especially they're moving to Florida, right? I would not recommend going there. I'm going to be very straightforward. Why? A lot of people like to go there now, I don't know, because of the weather, whatever else it might be. There's not enough spirituality there in order for people to be able to grow properly. I'm going to be very straightforward with you. There's not enough spirituality there. A lot of the people that go over there, they automatically start sinking. They don't go upwards. They automatically start sinking. No matter whether or not you like it or not. A person that wants to grow, a person has to think to himself, as an Orthodox Jew, a person has to think, I need to grow in spirituality. I need to learn. My life needs to be focused with spirituality. My children need to be around the proper surroundings. Right? A person cannot think to himself, Nicho, we're religious over here, we'll be religious over there. That's not going to happen. If a person is not around the proper surroundings, no matter who he is, it's just a matter of time before he sinks down and he drops all the way to the bottom. And therefore, it's coming to teach us over here, what? What was the lesson that Matan Torah is coming to teach us? No matter how great a person is, without Torah, without the proper surroundings, a person is only going to go down. A person is only going to drop. And if a person wants to grow, he needs to be in the proper surroundings. A person is not going to be able just to grow wherever he is. A person needs to connect to a good kehila, connect to a good rabbi, connect to Talmidei Chachamim, connect to people around him that are proper people, to be around people that are honest, to be around people that are decent. When a person connects to a good atmosphere, he himself develops into a different person. If a person automatically going down.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
40 years ago, Jamaica State was like a Florida.
Yeah.
Look today what Jamaica State, you used to call it Jamaica State. Today Jamaica State, look what it is, how much Torah you have.
You're right. Right. But let me tell you, 40 years, you're right, it took 40 years, but at the bottom, but also you have to understand that you're in Jamaica State, but you're still in New York. You're overall surrounded by tons of Talmidei Chachamim everywhere in New York, tons of yeshivot, tons of Torah. There's a lot in New York, even though you might be a little bit on the outskirts, which is better to be a little bit more in, but you're still surrounded. When you're moving to a place where you don't have anything there, very minor of anything, you don't have that same potential. You don't have that same potential. Here you want to find a good kids for your school, there's good schools everywhere, right? You want to live in a good neighborhood, your kids go outside, you have a good atmosphere, you have good surroundings. Okay.
40 years ago? Look how many shivot we have today.
40 years ago is 40 years ago, but New York was always somewhere striving, always somewhere growing. New York was always the Makom of Torah in general. You can't compare it to other places where you don't have anything.
Horrible surroundings.
Yeah.
He still stayed at the
That's why we still mention his zuchuyot to tell you he's one of a kind. It's not a common thing for a person to be like Yosef HaTzadik, right? If it would be so easy, we wouldn't mention his zuchuyot until today. Right? Yosef was a very unique individual. Even his father was surprised to see how he was able to stay strong. It's not so common that a person could stay that great. Now, I want to go back to the laws of Ribit a little bit. I want to discuss a few things. Now, Baruch Hashem, I get a lot of questions on Ribit, especially from the communities over here. Cash advance, and not only cash advance, and investings and lending, and people, Baruch Hashem, are trying to advance, and sometimes they need outside assistance. So, but not everybody wants to put their money on free, right? Because the bottom line is people like their money moving and making for them also. They can't just give out free loans to everybody if they themselves need to move their money and build their money up. So a lot of times they give their money on interest. Unfortunately, a lot of people, even religious people, give their money on interest. They give people loans and they tell them they want certain percentages in interest, and they don't realize that there's anything wrong with that. They don't understand how usher it is, right? They just know there's something like that you're not allowed to do, but they're not aware of the severity of the sin.
But giving to a goy, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you might not even be allowed to give them without interest.
So double charge. Depending the Jew for free.
If you could, that's the best, right? If you could give to a Jew for free, that's the best, right? But what happens is, I want to discuss over here, right? What happens is, if a person lend money on interest, say, for example, I came to you, you needed $200,000. I told you, okay, I give you $200,000, but you have to give me $250,000 back, right? And I give you 5 years to pay me back. Every year you're going to pay me $50,000. You agreed. You needed the money. You said, why not? I'll do it. Right? When people need money, sometimes they're desperate to go to a bank. People don't want to get involved in banks, especially when everybody's cash. Right? So what do? They say, okay, they take it. Now, say if I lend you $200,000 and I told you give me $250,000 back. And then you as the borrower, and then me as the lender, I found out how serious this Avirah is. I gave you the loan for 5 years. I came back to you after 2 months. I said, listen, I want my $200,000 back. I want to cancel the whole loan. Why? I realized that it's a surah. I'm not allowed to lend you the money like this with ribis. And the borrower says, no, you already gave it to me. I'm not going to give you back the $200,000. You're going to wait until I give you $250,000 back. We agreed? We agreed. He says, listen, I'm not going to take the $50,000 back interest. I'm not interested in sitting on 4 years to wait to get my $200,000 back for free. I'd rather invest my money somewhere else. So the lender tells the borrower, just give me back the money and we'll reinstate the loan. We'll make a heter iskam, right? And let's do it in a way that it's mutar. And the borrower says no. So in such a case scenario, if they would come to Beis Din, the Beis Din would require the borrower to give back the money and to redo the loan api heter iskam. Why? Because it's a sur for the borrower to pay back the interest. You're not allowed to pay back the interest at all. And the isser is on both of them. Right? A heter iska, many people always ask me how it works. I explained that I have it in my shiurim. I'll just explain it one more time real quick before we move on. That heter iska is not a loan. People think sometimes that I'm really giving a loan, I'm taking back percentage, and there's a document that somehow makes it okay. Right? That's not what heter iska is. Heter iska is not a document stating that there's a loan and I'm taking interest. Heter iska means that we're taking the money that I'm giving you and we're turning it into a a deal. We're turning it into a business deal, a transaction. We're becoming like partners in the transaction. Instead of saying, I'm giving you $200,000 as a loan, it's saying, no, I'm giving you $200,000 as an investment. You're investing. You're looking to make back, say, 40% profit. I'm taking 20% profit, and I'm taking a lot of the responsibility as an investor. I'm taking responsibilities also, right? So therefore, the heter iska means that I'm also taking equal responsibilities. That if you take a loss, I'm going to take a loss with you. It's more in detail, but I take responsibilities for a loss also, right? But in a loan, I don't take responsibility for anything. I give you $200,000, I want $250,000 back. It doesn't make a difference to me if a person lost everything or not, right? I'm getting back my money either or. That's a loan. An investment means I'm investing. I take also responsibilities that if something goes wrong, I also lose. That's what a heter iska is. It makes it into an investment. It's not a loan that a document just suddenly magically allows. That's not what's happening.
So how's the bank giving the heter iska?
All banks in Israel have a heter iska.
Yeah, I know. So what? They take the losses too?
So you have to see how they word the heter iska. The heter iska is more complex than that. You could get, you should have to read the heter iska. You have to read the heter iska, and then you'll understand more how it works, right? It's a whole shir in of itself. Now, say if a person, this is the halakha I want to get into, say if a person already paid back the interest. I gave you $250,000, I gave you $200,000, you paid me back already $250,000. And now you want your $50,000 back, interest that you gave me. You come to me, you tell me, listen, I didn't know that I'm not allowed to pay you interest. You took it from me, now it's asur, we're both over the isur. I want my money back. Can he ask for his money back or not? You already paid him the $50,000 interest. Halakha is, he's allowed to ask for his money back. If I took interest from you, no matter what it is, 50,000, 100,000, and then, right, you come to me afterwards and tell me I took interest from you and you want that interest back, you could take me to Beis Din and Beis Din will obligate me to pay you back that money of interest that I took from you. Because that's not my money. Right? Not only that, there's a she'ila in halakha that if you paid me back interest, now really, you have to come and take me to Beis Din and I will be obligated to pay you back that $50,000. But say you didn't take me to Beis Din. Say now, you owe him $50,000, but you don't have money from anywhere. Say you invested all your money is now not around. You're not going to have cash in another 5 years. You invested all of it, right? You owe somebody $50,000. He's coming and telling you, I want my money now. The only money that you have is the $50,000 that I owe you because of the interest that I took from you that I'm not allowed to keep, that if you take me to Beis Din, I have to pay you back. Is he allowed to take me to Beis Din to pay him back $50,000 that I really owe you? So there is a machloket, right? According to the Taz, he says no. Only if you take me to court and want $50,000 back that I took from you, do I have to go and give it back. But somebody else cannot come to me and say, since I owe you $50,000, so he wants to collect it because you owe it to him, right? Therefore, he would not be able to take me to Beis Din to get it back. However, if he comes to you and tells you, listen, I know you paid this guy back $50,000 in interest, I want you to take him to Beis Din and get the money from him and give it to me. You'd be able to do that. You'd be able to take me to Beis Din, take the money back, and I would be obligated to pay him back for him because the money that you owed him. Ribit is 100% refundable, we'll call it. Right? I have to give it back. However, if you took $50,000, if I took from you $50,000 in interest, and you mocheled me, you verbally forgave me. You said, listen, I know that I paid Be'isur, I know I wasn't allowed, but I mochel, I let him keep it. Let him take it. If he mochels you verbally, it's just like Gezel, it's mochel. Once you mochel, you can't come back afterwards and collect. Right? Because why? It's like Gezel. Just like Gezel, stealing something, for example, if I steal something from you, right? You could always take me to Beis Din and take it back, take me to court and take it back. But once you forgive me and you tell me I could keep it, that's it. It physically becomes mine. You can't take me afterwards to Beis Din and take it back. It's my item after that. Now, next question I want to discuss. It's funny, I had this type of a question come up and somebody asked me this question. Say, if לקח ריבית קיצוצה, say I took from you $50,000 in interest, and now I owe you $50,000 in interest. And then I died. And now my children inherited everything that belongs to me. My children inherited everything that belongs to me. Do my children have to pay you back that $50,000 that I had to pay you back? Understand the question? He says the children don't need to pay it back. The children don't need to pay back. Why? Because the isur of taking ribis is on me, and the obligation to pay back the interest is on me, because it says I have to make sure that I help my brother live. I have to make sure that I give my brother a source of life. I can't take interest from him. Instead of helping him, I'm taking more from him. Right? So the Torah says you have to give it back to him. But once I'm already gone and my children took the money, my children don't have an obligation to give it back. So if this guy, the borrower, comes to me and he says, listen, your father took from me $50,000 interest, he had to pay me back. I want the money from you. I know that you inherited $5 million from him. He owes me $50,000. Right? Because by a regular loan, if my father owed somebody $50,000 and I inherited money from my father, and this guy comes with a document, by a regular loan, I have to pay him back. Right? But by interest, I don't have to pay him back. Right? Because by interest, the obligation is only on the guy who took the interest. The children don't inherit such an obligation. However, the Shulchan Aruch says, if it's a particular item, I do have to pay him back. Meaning to say that if the ribbit that I took from you, say I took a Rolex watch from you as ribbit, right? And now I died and gave it to my children. So if it's a particular item, you do have to give it back. Because it's a disgrace for the children, it's a disgrace for the father that an item that took the ribbis is still around, still floating around. So people look at it, people see it, this is the guy that he took from him for ribbis. So something that's floating around, which is a disgrace to his father, that I do have to give back to this individual. Really, the halachot of kibbud Av V'em, the obligation of giving parents, of taking care of parents, is only from the parents' money. A child doesn't have an obligation to spend his own money on his parents. Right? A child doesn't have an obligation to spend his own money on the parents. And therefore, even if the father is obligated to do something for somebody, the child is not obligated for those obligations. Right? Even if your father sends you to the store. I'm not saying for sure it's decency for a child to spend money on his parents. But a child is not obligated to spend money on his parents for kibbud Av V'em. For kibbud Av V'em purposes. Right? So therefore over here also, Medin kibbud Av V'em, after they pass away, he wouldn't be obligated to pay back the interest that his father had to pay. However, if it's a particular item, since it's a disgrace to the father that this item, which is a ribbis item, is around and it's noticeable that it was taken from ribbis, there he would have to pay it, there he would have to give it back. It says over here, right, another case. Right? He says, what about if I charged somebody interest and I took interest from him, right? And now I want to do tshuva, I want to give him the interest back. I took $50,000 interest from him, I want to give him the interest back, but I find out that what? He died. Is there a mitzvah for me to return this interest to his children or not? So, lefi halacha, you do not have to give back the interest to the children. However, if a person wants to do teshuvah shlema, he wants full teshuvah, he should give back the money that he took as interest from the parents to the children. Right? Now,
He should give it to the children?
He should. If he really wants to do full teshuvah, he should give it to the children. Now, we'll do another halakha. Yeah, because if a person has ribbit in his hands that he took, he wants to do tshuva, he can't. The guy is not there anymore, right? But the children are there. So tshuva shalema will be that I give it back to the children also. Now, there are certain times where a person would not be required to pay back ribbit. When? He says, if a person wants to do tshuva, say a guy lent money on interest. For 20 years already, he's been lending Jews money on interest. Now suddenly he says, you know what, I want to change. This is not right what I did. It's a surah pi halakha. The Chachamim say that a person lends money on interest, he doesn't get up in Tchiyat HaMeitim. After 120, right, Mashiach will come, there'll be Olam Haba, everybody gets up to go to Olam Haba. This person that lent money on interest, he stays there forever, doesn't get up, right? There's a story, actually, a true story, I think, with Rabbi Akiva Eger. There was this one rich person, very stingy, and when he passed away, they wanted to get a burial plot for him, but he used to lend everybody money on interest, and people didn't really like him so much. So they came to the rabbi, and they asked the rabbi what to do. Right, they want to bury him. And the owner of the cemetery didn't want to bury him, I think. They didn't want to sell him a plot. So the family was very upset. So then they charged him 10 times more. Say a plot is $10,000, charge him $100,000. Now the family got very upset. They went to the rabbi, they say, why is this fair? Everybody pays $10,000, he pays $100,000. The rabbi said, you have to understand, right? Everybody pays $10,000 is temporary, right? So this person paying $100,000 because it's permanent. He's never going to get up. It's a land that you can never remove. After Olam Haba, everybody's going to get up. It's temporary. This guy is always going to stay. There's going to be a grave forever. Right? It's a true story. I don't know if the rabbi told it to the family directly or the guy in the funeral home told it to the family. The guy was an individual. He was a messed up individual. Very, it's people,
But it's an affair for the people that accept the money as well.
Yes, 100%.
So they also get up.
100%. They're not as bad. The guy who gives is much worse. He doesn't get up on Tchias Metim, but the guys that give back, that ever saw that they get punished by not getting up to Tchias Metim. To take interest, that's what I'm saying. That's the guy that doesn't get up.
The guy who gives the money to the gives you a address, he signs for it.
That's okay.
He realizing that he also taking the loss. And he knows, no, you can pay him back, right? He wants to go around.
A lot of poskim hold that if a person does not understand how Heter Iska works, it does not work.
Say that again?
A lot of poskim say that if a person does not understand how a Heter Iska works, it doesn't work.
Is that applies to a Ketubah if the person doesn't know the obligations to his wife? That doesn't work?
Oh, yeah.
No. But a person should know all the obligations. When I was getting married, I went to Rabelsky's house. He sat with me. He read every single line in the Ketuvah and explained to me what every single thing means. And then we found a mistake in the Ketuvah. I went to return it. I brought another one. Again, he went through the whole thing and explained it to me. Right? You have to know. You should know everything that you're doing. You're doing something, you should know. You're buying a house, you understand. Everything you do, you understand. When it comes to spirituality, you have to understand what you're doing also. If a person did it, they didn't understand, it's still he's still bound by the Heter Iska. Yeah.
I've heard also if a person doesn't understand, really comprehend Kiyat spirituality, he's a Jew. I know there's an Indian that you consider as a goy. I don't know, is that true?
We spoke about that. Oh no, there's two different people. If a person knows nothing about spirituality, he was raised like a full goy, he was never aware of anything, never went to yeshiva, nothing, is a tinok shenishba, let's call it. Right? There you're not allowed to lend him money and interest.
No, he lends money. You know, or whatever. He doesn't know.
No, that you're never allowed to do.
Signing in it, it's like garbage. He doesn't understand. Okay, I'll sign for you. No problem.
Explain to him.
Explain, he doesn't get it.
Okay, if you explain to him and he doesn't care, it's fine. But as long as you explain to him what it is. Right? As long as you explain to him what it is. Right? Now, it says over here, if a person did tshuva, and he wants to now say, you know what, I took money, interest from a lot of people, I want to give it back. It says over here, you don't take the money back from him. We need to say like this: if a person, his whole life, most of the money that he made in life was through lending money and interest, such a person, the Chachamim say, even if he wants to do tshuva, he doesn't have to give back the interest. Why? If a person lent an interest here, there, a little bit, but his main business was something else, then he has to give it back if he wants to do tshuva shleim, if he wants to become a full Baal tshuva. But if a person, his whole life is lending money and interest, and now if he does tshuva, he doesn't have to pay back the interest. Why? The Gemara says, "The meret chachamim meret takanan." Why? There was one guy, he used to lend money and interest. One day, he really wanted to do tshuva, he wanted to change, he realized he doesn't want to do this. And he said, you know what? He told his wife, I want to do tshuva shleima, right? I can't anymore. His wife told him, what are you talking about? She's like, if you're going to do tshuva and you're going to return all the money you took on interest, you're not even going to have your belt left. He heard this, he said, forget about it. I'll do tshuva after 120. Right? So the Chachamim saw that if a person thinks that if he's going to become a Baal Tshuva, he has to return back all the money he took on interest, he's not going to become a Baal Tshuva. He's never going to change. Right? Because he knows in order for me to become a Baal Tshuva, I have to give back all this money. So forget about it. I'll keep the money. I'll go to hell afterwards. Right? So therefore the Chachamim said such a person whose whole life is giving money and interest, he doesn't have an obligation to give back the money and interest. And not only that, even if he wants to pay it back, the person that he took it from shouldn't take it back. He should tell him no. The halakha says that you, Baal Tshuva, you don't have to give back the interest. However, if he's crying in front of you, he's begging you to take it back, you're allowed to take it back. But other than that, a person shouldn't take it from him and he doesn't have to give it back. Because he did full tshuva. He became a Baal Tshuva. The Chamim said such a person don't take from him. Because then what? We said he's not going to do tshuva. So that's the halachot that I wanted to discuss a little bit today. We'll continue next week. Rabbi Chanan ben Eka Shamin, Atzak Adashman Chutz Okol Estonen, Fika Chabana Otzona Mitzot Shemana, Adonai Chavetz Aman Tzidkoak, Din Torah V'Yadir.